It's January 21st, and we're waiting for the meeting to begin on the Acton CSD's Community Standards meeting with LA County Regional Planning, Richard Marshalian, and the Acton Town Council. It's a virtual community meeting tonight to discuss some changes in the CSDs. I believe they're going to discuss some things that the Acton Town Council wanted to see in there, and some of the verbiage. And we're going to see if that indeed is in there now and what the county has to say on it. This does affect everyone in Acton, every property owner, so hopefully there'll be people zooming in on this today.
And Mark, before we get too much further, I just really wanted to let you both know that we really would like to have another committee meeting.
Oh, sure.
Hopefully, whatever, if you could do a day next week, that would be great. Just let us know what would be good.
Sure. Yeah, I can get back to you with a date if that
Sounds
works,
good.
just to get started.
Okay, yes.
Set date. Let's see. Do you guys see the screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. It's 6:06. Do you guys want to get started? There's no one we're kind of expecting, right? I'm going to turn on the
And
camera.
find this, Jackie, I can't see who all's on.
Let me
We
see.
should have Jackie, we should have, I saw John Kessler, he's is working with us on trails.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I see, I'm looking at a list. It looks like Julie, Kelly, Aiden, who maybe he's.
Okay, that's probably Pam.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
at Jackie's in her driveway.
Okay. And I see Chuck and Donna and Jackie and
Okay.
John, as you mentioned. I see Stormy Hope, Tracy, and Lillian.
Very good.
Sorry. Okay. So. Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay. So there's no one else we're waiting for. I see Lillian is trying to connect to audio. Is that right? I can get started. We're going to have a recording of the meeting. So if anybody doesn't have access or needs access afterward, we'll post it on our website and people can follow along and make comments if they need to. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual community meeting for the Acton CSD. Just during the presentation, you can use a chat function to submit questions or comments, and we'll have a team member available for responses. If you're using your cell phone, you can access the chat feature by clicking the More icon at the bottom of your screen, and it looks like 3 dots. If you called into the meeting, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and let us know that you want to comment. And we'll be taking questions and comments at the end of the presentation. So I'd just like to begin by introducing myself and and the team for those of us in the audience who are not familiar with this team or this project yet. I'm Richard Marshalian. I'm the lead for the Acton CSD, and with me is Tahira Ferris. Christina Kulczewski is also part of the team, and our supervisor, Mark Herwick, who you can see on the video. Together, we all work on the AVCSD's update project, and I'm just kind of one person in the team, and I'm just kind of responsible for the Acton CSD update. So first, I'd like to go over what we'll be doing tonight. I want to quickly provide some background information for any members of the public that are new to the process, and some information on the project itself, and on to our public comment and Q&A section of the meeting. I realize now is a time there's a lot of division, and there are other county efforts that are ongoing right now that are either being led by other departments, other sections of our department, or otherwise. We wanted to spend what time we had to focus on the Acton CSD so we can get some good feedback from you guys during this meeting. If you have any comments about the iShow effort or the projects, feel free to leave a comment about the item in the chat, and we can forward that comment to the project team members and they can get back to you. But today, however, we want to really focus on the Acton CSD and get good comments and feedback from you guys. So first, some context. Bear with me if you're already kind of familiar with this kind of the CSD and what it is. I didn't know if there'd be any new people, so I wanted to kind of reintroduce people to this subject. Some of you might be asking, what is a community standards district or a CSD? It's part of the existing zoning code that applies to the county, and the zoning code is referred to as Title 22. The rules surrounding the CSD's purpose and its interactions with the zoning code are laid out in Chapter 22-300 of our zoning code. But in short, a CSD is a portion of the zoning code that applies only to a specific area of unincorporated Los Angeles County. What does a CSD do? It applies zoning standards to a specific area, which is sometimes understood as a community, that does not apply outside of its boundaries. So it's just that area gets these standards. What does a CSD not do? It does not replace or exclude other standards that apply to the community, unless stated or were explicitly overlapping. It is also not the only mechanism by which a county implements a general plan, and should be considered in light of all the other county efforts to implement regulations. So they might be asking, well, what standards apply to my community? Well, everything in the county code, including Title 22, planning and zoning, and standards included in the Acton CSD. So, why are we here? Well, there was an AV area plan that was approved in 2015, and as a result of that approval, it recommended implementation, and we began to implement it by looking at CSDs for various communities in Alamo Valley. During the initialization of that project, or the implementation, and as a part of the process, in 2018, the Acton Town Council requested an update to the CSD as a part of the AV area plan implementation. We had a few meetings with them then, and over the years in 2019 and 2020 and this year, well, maybe not this year yet, because it's still January, which we received for both, but the proposals we received were back in 2018. Those proposals were submitted by the Town Council, and a concept draft was prepared to summarize the request and what we understood as the community's desires. The request was shared with the public for comments and sent to other county departments for their review, and that a draft ordinance was created based on that concept draft, those community comments, and the county departmental review. That draft ordinance was made available to the public in anticipation of the December 9 hearing, public hearing, December 9, 2020 public hearing, which was continued to February, and the updated version of that ordinance is what we have here to discuss and what we want to receive comments and feedback on. So on your screen is an overview of just the different highlights that we want to briefly touch upon during our meeting. I will just briefly touch upon some of the changes and then open it up for comments and any questions. Just firstly, the draft CSD includes a number of administrative changes, corrections, and reorganizations. These elements generally change during the development and review of the CSD, but don't affect the standards that would apply to the community. So, for example, just because prohibition language is moved or rewritten doesn't mean that the standard is changed. It's just to assist the movement or the adjustment of the code is just to assist us in the administration of the code and standards and to ensure that we're consistent with our own procedures. Just for an example, in the CSD, the draft CSD, you may have read that the prohibition on billboards or outdoor advertising signs was moved or deleted from one section and added to another. In this case, the prohibition still stands. We're just making the language consistent with how it should be written in our zoning code. Our first big change in the CSD is found in kind of the first page, 22-302-050. It's the removal of language requiring a ministerial site plan review. The language, as it's written, required a site plan review for the determination of whether or not a proposed development complies with the CSD. So not for the use itself, but just to decide whether something was consistent, the site plan was required. So currently the uses allowed for zones in Title 22 are listed in the use table for each zone. This standard would have added permitting requirements to everything that was listed as permitted. And would also have applied to things that were, like we as a county were preempted from regulating by the state. So the reason for this change was just, it was important to do it because adding just a site plan review for just to determine whether something was consistent would have been unduly burdensome to property owners. It has the potential to be abused by quarrelsome neighbors. It requires us to charge for a site plan review, but does not state what should be reviewed, even when use is permitted by right. So there's no standards applied, but the standard was asking us to charge for a site plan review. And just as an example, there's one of many, but this is just one that came up in discussing the code. But say you have an existing fence or wall or hedge, it's under the required height. Right now it's just permitted to have it as long as you follow standards. If a neighbor would complain about that fence, wall, or hedge, the department would be required, based on the standard, in order to make a determination of whether it meets the standard or not, to charge the property owner for a site plan review and make a determination, say it does meet the standard. If later on the neighbor comes back and says, I think the hedge grew or the fence moved or something happened, then another site plan review would be required to make a determination as to whether the fence, wall, or hedge was in compliance or not. And you can see that could go on ad infinitum. There's a potential for abuse there if we're talking about the requirement being applied to determination of a site plan. So the language doesn't give any flexibility, and currently, outside of the CSD, staff has the discretion to request a site plan review where it's not required. So if something is permitted, but there's some outstanding circumstances, staff has the capability to request a site plan review. But this language forces us to request a site plan review whether the request is germane or not. During the development of this project, we've requested the town council or a community identify specific uses that they feel would need a site plan review and standards that we should potentially review. And we're always open to suggestions. So if there's specific uses the community feels would have a potential to be a nuisance, just please let us know or comment on that. So moving on, another change in the CSD was regarding hillside design considerations. The language in the CSD that referred to standards that were already in the hillside management area section of Title 22 was removed. As the language was redundant, it had no effect, and the only standards which were kept in the CSD was the one which was not restating a requirement, an existing requirement. The proposed CSD also has standards intended to balance protections for native vegetation, with some exceptions as requested for agricultural use or fire protections. In addition, oleander trees were proposed to be prohibited from all required landscaping. Standards for signage were also updated in the CSD. So the highlights of the change include just change standards for the temporary real estate signs. Or the example I brought up earlier about the billboards, the language for billboards being moved to a different section. So those are just kind of the changes to signage. It's all in one section now. In addition to the residential ranch entry signs you can see on the screen. So new standards for cargo containers were also added to the CSD. So standards would allow property in agricultural zones to have one cargo container, provided the property is at least 1 acre in size, and allow more than one cargo container, up to 3, depending on the lot size. These standards don't supersede permitting requirements for cargo shipping containers that Public Works has, and includes a number of standards to ensure that any approved cargo container does not necessarily become an eyesore to neighbors. Regarding home-based occupations, new language allowing home-based occupations in accessory structures was added, but other standards for home-based occupations have been updated to remove the Acton-specific standards. So the existing Title 22 standards still apply to property in Acton. And in addition, a lot of Acton is zoned for A1 or A2, and agricultural land can also establish uses based on their underlying zone. So what we noticed was a lot of uses that people might think need to be included in the home-based occupation section actually might already be allowed in the underlying agricultural zone. Commercial design standards were updated. Parking standards were added, and there was just some moving around the code so that the standards in the CSD that apply to commercial development were written so that they apply to the underlying commercial zone, as opposed to land use. In addition, some of those commercial standards were applied to industrial areas within Acton. So, and those were just the ones that kind of made sense for an industrial area and supported the Western thinking. Just after, that was just kind of a brief overview of the changes in the CSD. The draft language is posted on our website, emailed to the town council for your review and comments. Please feel free to provide comments during this meeting, online, using our forums, emailing us, calling. You're going to have office hours if anybody wanted to take advantage of it. And yeah, we just kind of ask you to submit your comments as soon as possible, and I'll open it up now for Q&A.
So, Rich, this is Tahira, everyone. I'm with Regional Planning, and I'm helping out tonight. I just wanted to let you know, Rich, that there are a couple of questions are in the chat already.
Okay.
One is from Jackie, who asked if we could please provide an example where a site plan requirement would create a circumstance in which the state law is violated. And Jackie, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and clarify in case I missed anything about that question.
No, I don't think I would like to. I think I'd like to remain muted.
Okay. So, Rich, yeah, I think it was when you were explaining that we were removing the language that required a site plan review for all activities. Mm-hmm. If you could clarify that.
Yeah, so there is I might be able to pull it up on the screen. There are certain uses that we are preempted from regulating by state code, so I think they're might be able to pull it up. The adult residential facilities, you're asking for just a specific example, right?
Yeah, any example where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to pull up the code off the top of my head. It's the adult residential care facilities, I think, where the state has licenses those uses, and we don't. We're preempted from kind of regulating them outside of how they regulate them. So here's one example. This applies to RA zones. And there might be others. There's a list of protected uses the state has an interest in. And we, by just blanket requiring some additional permits for it, we run afoul of that. However, and if you want, I can send a list as well. So if anybody's, for these questions that are going to get more technical, that maybe it's better if I send kind of the responses or the specific uses if requested. I could follow up with that. But those are the types of uses that we consider, Jackie.
Okay, so hopefully we've answered that question, and Jackie can let us know if she has any follow-up. You can always type your additional questions in the chat. So the next comment I see, Rich, is that it says you've added a biological survey requirement on hillside management. The community never requested this. Please describe the purpose of this assessment, what the results will be used for, what the implications are for the property owner trying to build a home, and how it will shape development. Additionally, you should not burden property owners with added reporting requirements unless there is a point and purpose to the report that is required.
I don't think.
So this is biological review. I think this is related to vegetation removal. Is that
Yeah, I
correct?
think that's a different section. But yeah, and that was, so the review is, or sorry, the biological survey requirement is, because the standard itself is talking about regulating vegetation. The questions that are gonna come up when people object to a determination maybe that the department will make. We're not biologists by training or by, none of us know exactly how to determine whether a certain plant was, how much coverage it provided, how it impacted a certain property, and there's a lot of questions regarding to the standard that a biologist needs to make a determination on. So we've kind of they all right now currently get consulted on cases like these, and we're just making explicit that a biologist should get involved in order to help make these determinations, because we are regulating vegetation in this case, and the biologist is the technical expert on that field.
Okay. So we do have a follow-up from Jackie to the previous comment, and where it says that you are not preempted from making adult residential facilities from complying with standard requirements such as setbacks and building permits.
But there's no standard being requested for the site plan review. So it's just a fee without a standard. And I think that's the issue we're having. So, and this is something that we did have, this is kind of going into the discussion we had with the CSD committee. We've been asking if there's a specific issues or something that a nuisance we can regulate or some issue we can bring up. And I believe it was, there was a desire for notification or something that was separate from the purpose of a site plan review. It's not really justifying the level of review that's being requested.
So if I may interject just real quick, something like a residential care facility, if it's for 6 folks or less, they get a license from the state. And our estimation of the way the county considers that's just as a residence. And so whatever standards there are for a residence, a home, they have to meet them, like setbacks and that sort of stuff. So if someone had a home and they were doing an addition to a home, then they'd have to get a site plan to take care of that addition. But the site plan is not there to regulate residential care facilities for those that are housing 6 or less. If they're more than that, then they need a CUP.
Thank you, Mark. So the next question is, please explain how a resident that does dog training at their home does not violate the home-based businesses restrictions in Title 22.
Okay, let's see. It's a specific example. So is someone's running a dog training school, or are they just training dogs?
I think they're asking if a dog training facility is in compliance with the home-based business
I'm sorry,
restrictions.
what's the difference between training dogs and running a dog training school? They're the same thing.
Yeah.
I could be
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna mute myself.
Well, okay. I guess the difference might be, I can train dogs for someone, but and that's different than me doing something as a private individual. Or
We're
I
talking
can.
about it being a business.
Yes, I know. That's
making money. Yeah.
Yes, so that's why I'm asking, because the question was how a resident that does dog training. So if I do a dog training for a friend and it's my, it's not run as a business, then the expectation is that the activity will be accessory to the main use. But a business is an activity that we've considered, or how do I put this? A business has activities that support it as a use, whereas if it's the difference between training a friend to swim in a pool and having a bunch of people over, charging them money to swim in my pool and train them. One might be appropriate for a residential area, but the other you can see can be taken to excess. It's the line is somewhat hazy, but generally where a signal that someone's doing something as a primary use is that they've decided it's a sort of business, and that's why we want to. It's likely to be more regulated.
I think the big complaint that we've had, our biggest point that we've had as town council, is that the home-based business in Title 22 is written more for a subdivision, you know, not really written for a completely rural area where you've got 5 acres or, you know, 10 acres. You can do a lot more on that without disturbing your neighbor. Right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wouldn't
Well,
consider training dogs in my own little backyard when I lived, you know, right next door to people.
yeah, and that's where I tried to bring it up during the presentation, but so there's the standard that deals with home-based occupations is separate from the establishment of a use on a property. So with a lot of Acton, there's I don't know if you've I'll try and quickly pull up a zoning map, but Acton's made up of kind of the rural town center area, which is zoned RA, which is a residential zone.
Right.
And then the exterior, which is an agricultural zone. So something like a dog training facility doesn't need to necessarily go through the home-based occupations section in order to be established in an agricultural zone. However, within an RA zone, which is residential, that zone is more restrictive, and that's where the home-based occupations that's where they might have to go through something like the home-based occupation section. So with a lot of and that's why we were asking, another request of the town council was, or the CSD committee, sorry, not the town council, was, could you provide us a list of home-based occupations that you think would be appropriate? And I think the response was that they wanted everything, and then, well,
How do you
we
make
just,
a list? That's all
well,
right. That was the point.
but the thing is, we know that we can't say everything because that includes something like adult uses, chemical manufacturing, all sorts of things that we already know from the get-go won't work.
And we don't want either.
Well, yeah, and I know, but that's why we're hoping. This is kind of the outreach. There's some people in the waiting room, so I'm just gonna let them in. But I'm sorry. This is kind of the process where we're hoping. Just the comments we're getting from you guys. There's uses that seem to be identified. So it sounds like dog training is one of them. So that we can look into whether dog training.
Animal training. They just say animal training. Yes, not just dog. Animal.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look into now. Get back. Like, is it all maybe already allowed? Does it something that needs to be looked at? That's the kind of feedback we need.
Because that's a good point that you're making, Rich. Because I was just looking at the code right now. A2 zones, you know, you can do dog training with a site plan review.
Yeah.
And so you could have 2 primary uses on your parcel. You know, you could do some other kind. You could do dog training. That's a primary use. You have another primary use that's your home. And if you know, a lot of people live in their home on an A2 zone, so they have 2 primary uses going on. So you would be doing your dog training. That's an allowed use in that zone with the site plan review. So there's not a problem there, and you can do that. Yeah, you're right. It does become a little tricky when the zones that we're dealing with are more restrictive or more like you were saying, suburban-like.
First of all, it's not tricky at all because A, you're taking away the site plan review requirement in the first place, so there will be no site plan review for dog training. B, people fly from all over the world, and they go to a friend of mine's parcel. And they get their dog trained. She trains them how to train their dogs. Okay, so she's not training a dog for a friend. It is her business. It is on her property. The county DCBA has floated a proposition last year, and I'm sure it's gonna come back, to tax all home-based businesses. She would fall under that umbrella. So, to the extent that you've asked us to take out the home-based business sections of our CSD and just defer to what's in Title 22. And to the extent that Title 22 prohibits explicitly dog training operations from all home-based businesses, it's not a little bit squishy or a little bit weird. It is clearly prohibited under the home-based business ordinance. So
That is, you're right. What I was looking at in the code was there are other uses that are still allowed outside of the home-based occupation, for instance, dog training in certain zones. And in the A2 zone, it's permitted with the site plan review. We're not getting rid of, when we talk about getting rid of site plan review for the Acton CSD, it's that language in the introduction that talks about you need a site plan review for every application or every development project. We already do that, if you will, through the zoning code as a whole in general. There are just a tiny few exceptions where we don't. And so we were trying to sync up, Acton with the rest of the zoning code, which had been updated about 2 years ago. That's part of that process. But we don't want to have uses go, that are, how should I say, that could be incompatible or not neighborhood friendly go through without any kind of review. Of course not. And so there's already that provision in Title 22 as a whole already. We're just trying to get everything synced up. If we are finding some places where there's a few places where it's not syncing up properly, that's what we need to talk about. And we'll work with you guys on that. We're just trying to get everything, as balanced and synced up everywhere, because we want our planners to be able to look at your projects right away and know exactly what to do. And we already, by practice, do site plans. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
I do have one question. So if you're able to have horse training facilities, whatever, in an ag zone, are you able to make money from doing it? Or is that when it falls under the home-based business, when you make money?
Home-based occupations it applies to primarily to residential zones, but the idea is it's regulating businesses that you might otherwise do in a purely residential area in a single-family residence.
Right. No, what I'm asking you is that if I'm able to have those facilities under the ag zone, can I make money from it?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
You can. I mean, whether or not you make money or lose money or how however business successful is.
I'm able to have money transactions.
Yes. Yeah. That's not. We don't regulate whether you make money or not. We're just talking about.
I hope that you.
Oh yeah, we want you to succeed, but
Right.
yeah. And then so the map. Can you guys still see my screen or no?
Yes, we can see it.
So just for reference, the kind of light green area is the all the areas in Acton that are zoned for A1 or A2, and they generally have lot sizes from an acre to 5 to 10 to 20, depending on their land use.
Yeah. What I was hoping is maybe when we get together with the CSD committee, we can spend the time to go through the zoning code and show you right in the zoning code where all the things that are allowed through site plan review in the zoning code as a whole. Now, I'm not talking about the whole thing with the acting discussion we're having about getting rid of that language that's about site plan review. In the big picture, the zoning code says certain things have to have a site plan review, and it's listed out, and we can go through all of those with you guys, and then when we see a little hole, then we can figure out how we can handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would be beneficial to somebody like me that I don't literally
And I can
look at
see
all this daily.
Yeah. Because what I could see us doing is bringing up the zoning code on the screen, and we can scroll through every line of all the different uses and show you in the particular zone that you're in what you can do, what you can do. This needs a site plan review, or some of them just say permitted, i.e. they don't even need a site plan. That's rare, but those are the kinds of things I think you guys are concerned about. And we'll go through all of those and see where there may be something that's missing that's of concern.
Right.
We can do that.
So,
yeah.
okay.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so are we good on that for the time being,
Yeah.
on that topic? Okay.
I think so.
All right, so I'm going to go back to John Kessler's comment because we skipped over that one to continue that conversation. So his comment is that he's concerned that the previous meetings concerns expressed by Acton Town Council and residents have been ignored. That there's no maximum number of RVs, container amount for the property was not adjusted, the trails section J was omitted and is solely on Parks and Rec, who have not integrated any of the requested safety concerns with their master AV trails map. And then also a question about whether streetlights are the norm. So a lot of questions in there to address.
Yeah, that one, so, or I did see that comment. So the maximum number of RVs kind of comment was about a standard that may have been brought up in the ISHO ordinance is I think, I don't know if that's correct or not, Mark or JR, but so we'll take that kind of this comment and forward it to them, just so they're aware of that concern. The container amount per property was adjusted. There was a slight change, and that was just that instead of the container requirement starting at 0 acres, so any lot can have one, there's a 1 acre minimum, so that there's a bit of a buffer when you don't have small lots. Just pop up with car containers in kind of the central area of Acton. The trail section, yes, that it wasn't omitted, but I think your concern was that oh no, the question was that section J was in there. Let me see. I apologize for just jumping back and forth trying to understand.
Oh yes, so John wants to be unmuted so he can clarify his comments.
Yeah.
So let me do that right now. Sorry, I'm trying to find him on my screen. There's a lot of, there we go.
Oh,
So John, there you go.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking our comments. I had about 5 different meetings with you and various people on this call. Mark Harwick, Zach Likens from Parks and Rec. And I know the Acton Town Council is very concerned about the maximum RVs, so I just want to go one at a time here real quick. I have a neighbor who just bought the property behind me. He plans on clear cutting it and putting RVs on it and renting them to people. And that's exactly what we don't want, and what we wanted to try to get rid of with a basic harbinger of illegal activity downtown with a very crowded RV lot that has been put in. So I did not find any reference right now to any RVs or maximum or minimum. It used to be at least they had a section that said 1 RV per lot that could be lived in, and I think that would be for grandparents and that sort of thing.
Hi, John.
I don't see any reference to RVs at all.
May I ask a quick question? So, are you saying that someone's trying to put in RV sales or something like that, or?
No, they want to rent them to low income people that they think they can get rent and just fill their 2.5 acres up with RVs and trailers.
Well, yeah, that sounds like something that probably shouldn't be happening because that's not in our code. So if you could forward that, if you want to forward some information to me about that's going on in that parcel, I'd be happy to investigate that.
Okay. The container amount, as anybody, I think I explained this before, it's great to have containers because they are waterproof and dustproof. What generally people use is 1 container for storage so that it doesn't get full of spiders and dust and water and everything else, and 1 for animal feed to keep the rats and everything else out. You can't mix the 2 because you get a ton of dust from any animal feed that you get, especially any kind of haze. It just covers everything in there with dust. And so I thought that 1 acre, that maybe 2.5 acres could be divided out. There's a big difference between 1 acre and 5 acres. So 1 container between 1 and 5 acres is a huge disparity there. I think that 2.5 acres should be allowed to have 2.5 to 5 acres should be allowed to have 2 containers. I mentioned that once before. That apparently wasn't thought of. I thought somebody understood that was a good idea, but maybe not. Section J of the trails is very dear to my heart because we ride so many trails out here. There's so much Western heritage out here from the early 1800s. And if you look at an overhead satellite view, you will see how people are moving in, lots of people fencing off, saying you can't go through here anymore. If I simply have the development that was marked out as the Csd property several years ago, if that ever gets developed, I have no way without putting a horse in a trailer to haul them 100 feet to get past Solid Canyon Road and Crown Valley Road, because the AV Trails map has that as a trail, and it's between a road, an steep embankment, and a railroad track. So it's obviously nobody's actually looked at that as if it was a safe trail. It is not a safe trail. The only other way would be to cross the railroad tracks, which is forbidden, and then cross them again at Crown Valley Road. There'd be no route west for anybody that is by Wisconsin or most people east of Crown Valley. You couldn't get to the park by walking or riding a bike or riding a horse. So those trails need to be updated. There's so many unsafe passages on the AV Trails map. It's simply the roads, what used to be dirt roads out here. So we've tried to illustrate the fact that we have a ton of trails, and I'd love them to work with us, but so far nothing has been integrated. I'm hoping that they will come out and take a tour with me. I know that it's COVID. So far, we haven't seen no movement on that. I just perused through it here, and it seemed to be that now any new residential street has to have lights, street lights. Is that true, or am I interpreting that wrong?
Can you point me to the section that you're referring to? Are you looking at the strike-through version, or?
No, I did. There's a lot of strike-through.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is rewritten or okay. So, are you looking at page 14? Deals with streetlights. I can read it. I can here.
Yes, shall be provided in accordance with the applicable provisions. So it goes on. It doesn't say they are prohibited. It sounds like they are, according to B, which should be C there on 3C, it says all required local highway streetlights utilize emission bill, and lots of shall be provided. Is that true, or
no?
That was always a very big concern.
Yeah. So that standard is not. It's not trying to require streetlights. It's just stating that where provided, they must be in accordance with the rural outdoor lighting district requirements. So it's basically saying, shielded. It doesn't do glare into surrounding properties. It's trying to minimize the kind of the light bleed and the impact of surrounding properties, and make sure that kind of saves the night skies in kind of rural areas.
Where's the part that says that street lights are not required or need to be approved by the Acton Town Council or some other thing? Is there any section in here that says that?
That they're not required?
I mean, it's telling us the standards by which they should be used. It's not telling us that they can't.
Okay, I see.
Somebody has to prove that.
Yeah, so streetlights are only put in if Public Works deems it necessary for safety. So we don't have a requirement that they put in the streetlights, but what the standard is saying, like as a separate process, Public Works decides streetlights are necessary for safety, say it's a high traffic intersection or whatever else. Should they decide to put in the streetlights, they must conform to these standards that apply. And the first is, it's got to be consistent with the rural outdoor lighting ordinance. It shall complement the character of the Acton community, including the architectural style guidelines, and utilize Mission Bell, Mission Bell design features or fixtures.
Yeah, I see that. And I do have one more general question, and that is this an attempt to have Acton conform to other community standards? I felt like there's a lot of cross through, a lot of strikeouts. I don't know if it's to clarify or to make Acton conform.
No.
Can you clarify what the
Yeah, so
intention is?
there is the desire where there are similar standards that multiple communities are requesting. There is a desire to make sure it's consistent because we just from a legal perspective, everything we're writing is an ordinance, and we have to justify the ordinance if someone challenges us. We can't say, for the sake of aesthetics, we want a certain standard A to be low, and in a different community, say for the same reason, we want it now to be high, because we're running around contradicting ourselves. So in general, where multiple communities are requesting something similar, we try to make the language and the reasoning consistent, because it's good planning, and also it's one ordinance that the county maintains. However, there isn't a desire just to make Acton consistent or conform just for the sake of conformity. So we had added standards specific to Acton, such as the Mission Bell design fixtures, design guidelines, and so on, just throughout the CSD, as was requested by the community. So so I guess we're not going for consistency's sake. We're not trying to make the CSD conform to any other CSD, but where multiple communities are requesting the same thing, we want to make sure that the language and the reasoning behind it is consistent, lest we open ourselves up to people saying, it's all arbitrary and it has no meaning. So it's not really a yes or no, it depends. If you're asking for the same thing like Little Rock is asking for, we shouldn't be having a different reason why you get the same thing. Or we shouldn't be having, the same reason justified to completely opposite things. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered all your question or if there was more to it, but if there was, just feel free to let me know. And again, with any of these, if I'm not not answering to your satisfaction, or if people want to follow up, we have our contact information on this page. More than willing to follow up with anybody, kind of walk into the process and get your feedback on what you think you'd like to see for the community. This is part of the outreach process, and I also have office hours every day. Anybody can sign up for it. Do we want to take, let's see.
So there are a few comments. Jackie, it looks like she might want to say a few more things. I think there were some comments related to trails.
Yeah. Jackie, you want to, can we unmute?
Yeah, I think she's unmuted now.
Okay.
I'm trying to minimize how much I talk because I don't want to lose my temper. So I tried to type the questions out the way they need to be answered. I'd like to know, you said in the county code is where the Antelope Valley Plan is implemented. I'd like you to point to where in the code the Antelope Valley Plan requirement that all commercial and industrial businesses be linked by trails and pedestrian pathways, where that's implemented in the code. I'd like to know where in the code the AV plan requirement that all businesses in the community of Acton be local serving. I'd like to know where that's going to be implemented. I'd also like to point out that a business is not deemed local serving in this town unless it provides everything that's appropriate for equestrian uses, including trails, hitching posts, and everything else. If it does not have those elements, those businesses are not local serving because they are not appropriate for our equestrian community.
So it sounded like there were three at least 3 different parts of your question, and I want to make sure I understood all of it. The second one was about, the first part was about where is the requirement that the county code implements the AV plan requirement that for commercial and industrial developments, or that they be connected via trails. Is that right? Okay. Okay, let me see. So just, you'd like to know where else we implement the requirement that something, where else we implement the requirement that, or the requirement that all new commercial and industrial developments be connected by trails. And you're referring to a goal, a policy goal in the AV area plan that, I don't have all my documents on. So I can pull it up. This might be if there might be too much for me to answer in one meeting.
Well, let me see if I can summarize
But,
a little bit of that.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to say that I have been involved in meetings with trails separately from Parks and Recreation, separately from you guys, John and Jackie and others who had some meetings with trails and trying to find out about the trails map and what Parks and Recreation is doing. I was in a meeting yesterday, a quarterly meeting about coordinating between regional planning and Parks and Recreation. And I spoke with Parks, and they know that Acton is very concerned about trails. There's no doubt about that. And they also know that they know the best thing to do is to go out there and do a whole new trails mapping exercise or project. They're not they don't have that ability to do that now, but they know that needs to get done at some time in the future. And that is important for us in regional planning because, as you know, what they put on their trails map, and it could be quite detailed, but what's there provides us the opportunity then to allow for the asking of easements for trails when any discretionary project comes through or subdivision. So that in effect is sort of the background to implementing the Antelope Valley Area Plan, albeit it is slow and it's not getting to where the community would like to be now. But that's the process to make it happen, is the various agencies have to coordinate and get all their ducks in order to make that happen, i.e. what you're interested in is trails throughout the community of Acton. It takes a couple different county partners to do that, and that another partner is Public Works. And so I've spoken with a few folks in Public Works as well too. I've talked to John, and I've talked to about some of the issues about properties being cordoned off and people can't pass along on the trails. But that subject aside, they know that Public Works knows that there's an existing trails map, and that does have some alignments that things can happen on. And so I think there's a desire for our agencies to start working together in Acton to see if there's a way to make some trails happen. But it's not, that would be kind of a special project. That's not a method to happen through the CSD process. What we can do through the CSD process right now is take the language that Parks and Recs has regarding trails development and put that in our code, which is what we're doing. But that doesn't, get to the point where you guys want to be now, where every single project it compels trails development. That's a larger county coordinated effort that has to happen, and that involves establishing work plans, budgets, getting the money, grants, etc. to do that.
At the very beginning of this presentation, Mr. Marshallian pointed out that the elements of the general plan are implemented in the county code, various sections of the county code.
I said
that's
as
true.
one mechanism for implementing,
Right.
among others.
Yes. And Rich is
Okay,
right.
so because both the county plan and the AV plan state very clearly that all trails to meet the objectives, policies and requirements of those plans must be obtained, whether they are mapped or not. It says it's in the county code, straight up, the county general plan, excuse me. And it is, so it's not, the general plan states very clearly, unmapped feeder and connector trails need also be obtained in addition to those mapped on the map, the trails map, the county's adopted trails map.
Right.
And Parks and Recs has never spoken to us since that introductory meeting months ago. They've never talked to us. They've never gotten back to us. We've sent them maps. We've sent them Mr. Kessler's maps. If you don't put those, and it's not a policy or a goal from the AV plan, it says clearly that commercial and industrial developments shall be connected by trails. So
that language is, you're absolutely right about that language, but it's finding that path to get, I don't want to use that, that's incorrect to say path. To get to that point, yes, you're right. The plan is clear, it says that. The departments of the county, and it's not just regional planning, because the plan is for all county agencies to take a look at. We all have to work together to get to that point. And so there's probably multiple reasons why we can't get to that point yet. That doesn't mean we know that we need to get there. And I know that we're at a point right now where we're thinking, oh, well, the CSD is the way to do that. But the CSD can't make the trails happen.
I don't, and I recognize that it may feel like I'm trying to put the burden on regional planning. That is not what I'm trying to do. The burden is on the county. I'm just reluctant to adopt the changes in this plan until those issues are addressed. So for example, and I'll be honest, I've had 24 hours to look at this plan. And on top of this plan, I'm making a lot of comments on PSPS events and so on and so forth. So this is not the only thing on our desk. But I appreciate that you made the change, for example, that trails have to comply with, or comply wasn't the right word, I don't remember what word you used, but with the AV plan and the LA County General Plan, as well as the Adopted Trails Manual. We're right there is a huge problem, because the Adopted Trails Manual states that all trails must be developed and perfect and maintained and accepted by Parks and Recs, which will never get Mr. Kessler what he wants, because it's never going to happen. Parks and Recs today still does not secure trails even on mapped alignments. And they have said that they won't accept a trail unless it's developed to their standards and created exactly the way they want it to be. Meanwhile, as Mr. Kessler's pointed out, things are getting closed off. Things that should have trails on them are getting closed off. Every subdivision where we've asked for a trail from regional planning, even though our CSD says they're supposed to have it and the AV plan says it, it's been rejected. And so we're losing connectivity. We don't, frankly, and we've said it over and over, we don't particularly care if the trail is pretty, and we certainly don't want it to be pretty if we don't get the trail unless it's pretty. We need the trail and hope it's pretty. And so when you write a CSD that requires compliance with the Trails Manual, you are absolutely eliminating the very thing that Mr. Kessler and the Active Town Council and Mr. Fox and many other people have asked for.
Yeah, Mark, I feel like it opens a big loophole for developers. There is for sale signs everywhere around here right now. And they're going to gobble this up. They're going to go in and they're going to start breaking ground. They're going to get their permits for grading. And it's going to, the time is now. It will be over by the time we get the parks to actually update the map. And that's why I'm worried about removing verbiage that at least puts one little roadblock in the way where they have to talk to the community and ask what they want, not open the floodgates for the developers to close it all off. And that's what concerns me. I can't wait to work with Parks and Recs. I know it could be a long process, but that's what I worry about, is what happens between now and that long process. By the time we get Parks and Rec out here, have we lost our opportunity? Is it gone?
Yeah, because we followed up after our last meeting with Parks and Rec, and we have never heard back from them, which we ended up in the holiday, we ended up in, doing things, and we kind of lost track of all that. And then all of a sudden we kind of realized, well, hey, we never heard back from them. So now we're pushing to get back to that. And my other question is, are there other communities that you're working with their CSDs that are talking about trails and possibly talking about their home-based businesses and things like that? Are there other communities that are just as concerned as we are with those issues?
Regarding trails?
Trails and home-based businesses not being
and
more
local
than
serving businesses.
Yes.
I haven't heard. Well, yeah, I mean, we're a team of 3, and
Right.
or not only here, but I personally haven't heard as much.
I've talked with people at Public Works too, and they know that trails are the concern to the community in Acton and other communities as well too. But they know Acton, and they know about Clown Valley Road and the ideas about possible trails, and it's a matter of it's the county's huge. It's a matter of getting these agencies kind of coordinated on things, and we're starting that. And I'm happy to continue to be involved in conversations with my colleagues in these other agencies to see if there's ways that we can keep moving on trying to think about trails in Acton.
Well, honestly, since they're not talking to us, the only hope we have for trails is for you to continue talking with them. But frankly, the path that Parks and Recs has set for trails does not in any way, shape, or form comply with the AV plan or the county general plan. And that's the problem.
Well, you guys, I think I've mentioned this before, that they are working on a regional and rural parks need assessment project right now. Parks and Rec is. And I've been involved in some of those meetings as well too, and they're really, and you may be contacted soon by people from consultants from Parks and Rec regarding rural conditions. They want to know what the rural communities are concerned about with regard to recreational services, and part of that would be trails. So I think some opportunities will be arising soon for conversations that go further in the discussion about trails in Acton and other places in the Antelope Valley.
But here's the problem, Mark. If you're talking about the RPOSD program, which we got a notice on the other day,
Is that it? Maybe that's
RPO.
RPOSD, RS, okay, maybe I said that it's alphabet soup. For one thing, I was relieved by the AV plan because I thought, okay, fine, it's done. It's just going to happen every time, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's not how it's going to be implemented. Now we have to go through and get a whole new trails plan together, which is completely inconsistent with the county general plan and the AV area plan, by the way. We're going to have to spend all of our time on that. And now, if we go through the RPOSD program, what teeny little bit of money, teeny itsy bit of money that Acton will ever get out of Parks and Recs for measure whatever it was, P or A or whatever, now we have to put it to our trails. Well, our community someday would love to have a skate park. We'd love to have a swimming pool. But if we have to use our money to go in and buy land that should have been gotten when the development happened, that's a waste of our resources. It's not where we want to put our POSD money. These developments should give the trails up as part of the development because that's the entitlement process. So, and if we have to burn all of our itsy bit of money that we get just to make the trail pretty so that Parks and Recs will agree to let us have it, there are not words to describe how upset I am right now.
Now, so there is a mechanism in place now, but what you're telling me, and I've heard before, that it doesn't seem to work well. That is, with a subdivision, that's a discretionary process, and through that process, it includes Parks and Recreation to consult, and also Public Works, and with regional planning, and with the developer. They could put in trails.
They're required to put in trails.
Right,
trail
their
we've
guidance
asked-
is to do that, yes.
Every trail we've asked for on every single subdivision in the last 10 years has been denied, rejected.
And it must be some process that they go through to have findings to say, oh, well, you know, it doesn't meet our standards, or
It's not
whatever. I'm
mapped,
not sure
even when it is mapped.
exactly why.
They say, no, they say it's because it's not mapped.
Mm.
And even though it is mapped, it's mapped. No, it's not mapped. So that's why, that is why, and you were there, Mark, with the AV plan. We put everything into that AV plan, including the statement that says all new buildings shall be connected.
Right.
And so
Right.
we thought the problem was fixed, and now we're learning that not only is it not fixed, but the county plan and the AV plan are kicked to the curb as irrelevant because the county can't figure out, and I'm not saying regional planning, I'm saying the county, all 50,000 departments can't figure out how to make it happen. So we're just going to ignore it. That's what's going down. That's what's been going down. I'm tired of it. I mean, we're sitting here, we don't even know if that Dollar General, the used car lot, what's the other thing on Smith Street, are going to have trails. And they're all required to have trails by the AV plan. And the county general plan. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
RPOSD,
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
sorry.
Right. So yeah, right. You're right. The plan is making has made those statements. Then it's a matter of that getting implemented. You're right.
The plan also says that businesses are supposed to be local serving. I noticed that Malibu gets that in their CSD, but we don't.
But may I ask you guys this? Based on the work that was done for the Antelope Valley Area Plan and any changes in the land use categories and zoning designations, which were basically, I believe, to make things as rural as possible and as least dense as possible, is that by nature going to encourage local serving? Because
No, that it just encourages low density, which is great.
okay,
In fact, Mr. Soraya pointed out at a meeting on the issue just a couple months ago, or a couple of weeks ago, that gee, if we had just increased our density, we could have a lot more development here. And I said, we for our homeless, I'm like, you let us build 10 homes, we can house 60 homeless people here. That's all we have. We don't. Our allocation of homeless is very limited. We can accommodate homeless in our low density development. And he said, well, that, you guys need to, if you guys want to do that, you need to move up this low density stuff. So I'm sorry, I feel like from all different sides, every element that we worked for starting in, Mark, 2006 on the AV plan, right?
yeah, that's right.
Is being either ignored or carved away or undermined and not elevated to the status it's supposed to have, that we thought they would have. And now I'm looking at having to go through a whole nother parks review, go fight that enormous battle to get something done that we should have had done 5 years ago. I'm just very upset.
I
I understand.
don't
that.
usually see Jackie very upset.
You guys have fought a long, hard battle.
And we still have to keep fighting it.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. This is,
I'm done. I am fighting the PUC, FERC, Edison County. I am tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
We're not, and go ahead.
I want to follow up, and I completely empathize with you, Jackie, and the other members of the community too, because you guys have a vested interest in this. You want to see your community better. The Department of Regional Planning, you would think, is like, oh, that's the agency they plan, so they should have it all sorted out. It turns out when you turn the page a little bit. We do a lot of that stuff, but the tools that we have is just the zoning code. And we need other tools as well too, and that needs to be coordinated with other agencies. And that is what the general plan is supposed to be helping us to do. And you know, that's a difficult process for us. You guys shouldn't have to worry about that, but that's on our side. So I need to keep, you know, working with my colleagues in the other agencies to see how Acton can get some benefit from more trails or better attention to trails than now.
Well, and the other thing that we need to address is the fact that we don't end up with that many people on these meetings. Because I know Pam reached out to a lot of people. I was out of town for the last 2 weeks. I was in Texas. I had a hard time reaching out to some friends, which I reached out to a few to tell them to try to come on tonight. And but she reached out to quite a few people, and they all basically told her it's too hard for us to get on the internet. You know, we get kicked off. You know, and so you don't end up with a lot of people here listening to these things, which is what we need in order to make this go through. We need to have more community input and comments. We do the best we can as the committee to get as much community input as we can to and talk to as many people as we can. But we need to find another way to implement these meetings possibly.
So regarding the meeting,
Like this kind of a meeting.
yeah.
I mean,
So regarding the meeting connectivity question, I think I mentioned the Acton library. It should still have, even though I think their policies they're closed, or you can't go inside because of the COVID thing. Their Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi hotspot is still available to connect to. And there are other libraries that have been setting up mobile hotspots in their parking lots. I did check to see if Acton was one of them, but it wasn't on the list. However, although they don't have a hotspot in the parking lot, the structure still should have internet. So if people are having connectivity issues, almost like I was drafting proposals, almost like a drive-in. People could come with their cars, park next to the library, and connect to their internet, and that might help with if anybody has connectivity issues.
right.
If that's something that helps, especially coming up for any public hearing or other committee hearing, I'm willing to work with you guys and speak to the library and see if there's any barriers there. But regarding the trails issue, we're not trying to put aside this issue, and I know that it's, you know, as someone who's, you know, going to be looked at as a bureaucrat, it's going to probably ring hollow when I say this, but we do care about doing the right thing for the community, getting you a CSC that serves your needs, but also meets the needs of the county and is good planning. We're trying to find a solution to the trails problem. We know that Parks and Rec are the subject experts, and we know they're working on getting together something for Trails for Acton, because I think they felt the pressure and they know that the community wants something. I don't know what that'll look like or what effort they're working on, but we have been in contact with them and they're working on it.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, it's certainly on their you know, on the front of their desk. They know that Acton is concerned about trails, and Public Works knows that Acton is concerned about trails, and Regional Planning knows Acton is concerned.
Okay, Richard and Mark, how might we help?
Oh,
Well,
throw your weight around.
yeah. Yeah,
I know we've tried this before. I'm sorry, my heart's broken because I'm listening to all of this. I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah.
how might we help?
Well, here's what I've been thinking, and again, it's true. We can go back to the Antelope Valley Area Plan, and there's the discussion about trails in the Antelope Valley Area Plan. That's clear. I think what the plan means is that it doesn't tell you how to make that happen. So then it's up to the agencies to get that figured out, because all county agencies have to look at the general plan. So I would suspect that there might be a need to have some kind of like, a meeting of the minds amongst the various affiliated agencies that deal with trails. I just mentioned them: planning, parks, and public works.
And we did that a few years ago.
Yeah, when was the last time that happened?
It was when I first started.
Okay, so maybe that needs to be started.
And I understand, of course, it's difficult. I know, and this is part of everyone's frustration right now. We're at a time where we can't physically get together, sit around the table, and really talk and lay out maps and visuals and we're at a time that we're all challenged to make anything moving forward like this happen, because let's face it, we can't get together, and it's difficult. But yeah, it was a long time ago. We met in the library in Acton, and a lot of things have happened since then, because we've gone through the CSD process, and that's posed a lot of new questions and proposals and brought a lot of attention to the community. So there's a lot of more opinion and input about what is expected and how they want to see it happen. So I don't know, how can we help at this point to move things more forward?
Yeah, well, what I've been thinking is with the CSD, I think, again, I feel constrained or limited by what I can do with the CSD.
I know.
So I would like to see maybe if we could have a side conversation or a side project that it's a task force or task group or however we call it, that focuses in on trails in Acton, and it gets the key players together to see if there's a solution to some major trail issues that maybe could be addressed in a more immediate fashion. It'd be outside of the CSD, but it would be demonstrate that there is some attention being paid to maybe a couple hot spots that can maybe be solved in short order. And again, that would have us all getting together with the community members and then talking about that. That's kind of what I've been thinking about.
Let's you and me circle back to that tomorrow.
Okay.
Or next week.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I know tomorrow's Friday, and that makes it hard for everyone. But yeah, let's circle back to.
Okay.
Because it has to be done.
Yeah. I mean, this is certainly through this process of the CSD, issues come up, and this is one of them. Our CSD can't handle it at the moment, but now that we know it's an issue, we could maybe take it on, and I'm happy to be involved in a side project. And then we can still continue to move on the other items in the CSD, which are some good things for the community, so that we can get that taken care of. And let's say another year down the line, after this CSD is adopted and some other things change regarding trails, and then we can make some tweaks to the zoning code, which is CSD, then we have something to work with at another time. But that's kind of what I've been thinking about.
You would open the CSD again?
Well, I would. I mean, to me, the CSD is part of the zoning code. And if the zoning code needs to be updated, and the CSD is part of that, then that's probably what we would do. And I can't put a date on it at this moment, but I certainly think there's a lot of pressing things in the CSD that can be addressed right now, and let's get them done. And then these other things that are causing that as a big issue, like trail, let's take care of that as a separate project and get it sorted out, so then we can figure out how to move it forward to get into the zoning code if we need to do that. Because I think everybody here, and it was hard for me when I first started with the department to understand, like, oh, CSD and the zoning code. No, they're actually the same. It's just the CSD is just a little geographic location of tweaks to the zoning code. And so once everybody knows, when we're talking about CSD, we're talking about zoning code. It's kind of one and the same, except for the CSD is the local focus of the zoning.
It's what makes us unique.
Yeah. It makes a lot of communities unique, yes.
Yes, it's what makes us each unique against one another. Yeah, you know. So and John Kessler said that perfect. He said the same thing. He said Acton is a very unique community.
Well,
So,
I've seen the map that John's prepared. I loved it because it's like a little history lesson. It has all these other little things on it that I learned about Acton. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So yes,
Pam was just texting me that she's trying to talk, but we're trying to figure out how to make that happen.
I hear Pam. I heard her.
She's on Aiden. She's on the Aiden.
She's unmuted. You can try.
Okay, I'm gonna send my son out there. Just
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, Pam.
Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Mark.
Girl.
Okay, you know I'm out in the car
Hello.
in the
Yes.
parking lot. So myself got a little out of control when I heard Richard say, yes, we need to go up to the library and all get in our cars because we can have internet service up there. How many people do you think I can talk into that?
I don't know. No one wants to do it.
How about zero? How about zero?
Well,
My whole
yeah.
community is in an uproar over the fact that all this stuff is being done and no one has got the information. I mean, we got this yesterday on Inauguration Day. I don't know about anybody else, but I was watching the inauguration. I didn't have time to look at this until an hour before our meeting tonight. It's just astronomical to me. And I'm sorry, I'm sounding very frustrated, but all the people that contacted me about this supposed community meeting said the same thing to me. When are we going to get a chance to address this in a public manner, in an appropriate manner? Nobody's going to drive to the library, Richard, and sit in their car and hope that they can participate. We need a couple hundred people attending something so that they can get informed about what's being proposed by the county to our community. And everybody feels the same as I do. It's not working. Help us.
And to that point, we have gotten together as many people as we can to be involved in our portion of, talks and
there's several. There's several of us.
But,
There's several of us, Kelly, that have put hours and hours into this project for years.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're getting what we need in the community of Acton. I'm not Little Rock. I don't care what Little Rock is doing. They maybe don't have the equestrian problems that we do here and the ability for people to have their horses and everything and their cattle and whatever. How do you fix this for us, guys?
So, there's a couple things I wanted to mention, and that the first was about the communication issue. I understand you're saying, maybe no one's willing to go if there are internet issues to the library.
Are you? Will you come to the library?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind.
You want to come to the library and you'll sit outside and we'll put out chairs out there and you can talk to our
as long as they don't violate the department directive for it. But if we're in a car, I think it's fine. Like I'm not. I think the virtual meeting thing is kind of what they're asking us to do.
But Richard, it's not working.
I understand, and that's what I was trying to say is, so earlier in the process, I don't know if you remember the first few meetings we had, I tried to share like an online survey or in a form that we basically came to, I think you were there, Pam, or the town council, and I was asking, what is the method that would help us communicate with you? I think I called it a communications preference form or something like that. and we had a bunch of different options: in-person meeting, mailing. I think we had like all the social media stuff we were able to do. And I realized, we've kind of moved past that because a lot of our options have been whittled down for us. But if there is a way that you guys can think of that would be beneficial, if it's holding the meeting, and we can based on our county director or whatever, like holding the meeting on Facebook or Facebook Live or some other venue that maybe you guys can connect to, what I've been trying to do is, what I've had up for a couple of weeks now is just online office hours where an individual can reach out to me every day and have a meeting with me.
Richard,
If there's,
excuse me for interrupting, but our community is not even basically informed about any of this. So for an individual to contact you during your business hours to try to discuss this, they don't even know what they're talking about yet. We just got this yesterday.
well,
Okay?
but
And now I can call you and talk to you about issues on here because I've studied it, I'm informed, but the majority of the people in Acton, our 7,500 community members, are not informed. You guys have got to figure out how to make this work. It's not our problem. You're telling us that this is what we have to do, and that by February 24th, you're going to send this over to planning.
well, okay, but I mean, I know that we're having communication, people aren't as involved, but, we did send out two different times, postcards to both every property owner in Acton, and at one point every property owner and tenant in Acton, as well as, I remember at one point we put up posters, in different establishments downtown, I think the town council.
And 2020 happened, Richard. The
I
COVID shut
understand.
us all down.
I understand.
Shut us down.
I understand. And what
So now we're supposed to jump through hoops and figure out how to educate our community. I'm not smart enough to know how to do that. So I'm asking you guys who are the professionals, tell me how I can educate my community because they're angry.
Yeah. You know what? I'll reach out to you then. We'll talk about this. If there's something we can do, because so just a side note, we're not only asking for feedback today. These documents, they've been up for months, and we're still asking for comments, for another over a month from now. There's plenty of time for people to get involved, to comment, to leave feedback.
That's not enough time. Not until you can come to this community and present this to our community the way that they're used to getting their information from the county. We pack the library, we pack the community club when regional planning or anybody else comes to our community. Our community turns out, but they can't turn out this way.
Okay.
It's difficult, yeah.
Okay, then let's,
Can I
I
throw
understand
something in? I'm sorry. As soon as I'm grateful that you sent out that press release, whatever we're going to call it, last week that you wrote up, and I pushed it out immediately to the papers, and I believe all of the papers are on the line here. But then I sent a follow-up email. I pushed that out saying, please tell everybody not to wait until the version that dropped yesterday comes out, and not to waste time looking at the version that was on the website, because I didn't want them to. I wanted them to know the freshest version, and then I think I pushed the link out to the papers that you sent yesterday, or if I didn't, it was an oversight. But I was pushing a lot of things out yesterday because yesterday was press day for at least two of the papers here, and so we're doing what we can, but I haven't even had a chance to go through this version in detail. I mean, Kelly did a great job going over it. She pointed to some of the stuff, which I won't talk about right now because I'll lose my temper again, or worse, I'll start crying. So we're doing everything in our power to push this out to people, but timing is important, and this version just came out yesterday, and I don't know what the solution is, but I think to Pam's point, what we're doing now is not great. It's just not. It's not,
It's not
great.
working. It's not working.
May I ask Pam and
Sure.
Kelly and you, Jackie, as well too. You know, Rich did talk about a little bit all the work, the outreach that was done before COVID, and then late last year or late 2019, we were still doing things face to face and that sort of stuff. I remember going to ARTC meetings and seeing folks there, and I remember being at the library in the latter part of 2019. Then in early, 2020, then we had COVID, but we did try to maintain contact with folks, and we also did a full mailing to everybody, so people did know that we were working on the project. Matter of fact, I got a number of phone calls from folks from our mailing who were property owners, and they were concerned, well, what is the CSD going to do, and that sort of thing. And they were from people that I had never met in Acton, so I know that the mailing hit folks. And then when we put the actual first draft up in October, there was a lot of back and forth amongst folks and you guys as well too. And so we thought, well, we need more time. So we've been working on providing more time. And I do know, though, it's been difficult. I mean, the infection rate and everything has been horrible, and people can't communicate and that sort of stuff. I completely understand that. But we have been really taking a close look at all the comments that you guys provided again too as the committee back in last November, and really trying to make sure we hit all those things in this version. So this version should be like a better understanding of where we stand from the department's perspective of what we can and can't do with the update, and we're trying to let everybody know that. And the idea too is when we get to hearing, that's where, if people are very, very concerned, that's when they can also make their comments known. And the Planning Commission allows everybody to talk. Everybody. And if there's a line of 30 people, they're going to talk. Yes.
There's smoke coming out of my ears now, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to start getting really cranky. I've been to the Planning Commission meetings many times, and by the time we get there and we get to talk, the decision is already made. This has to happen way before it gets to the Planning Commission on February 24th. And if I have to stand on the street corner tomorrow waving this so that people will start understanding, then I will do that. But this is not working the way it's being done. I get what you're suggesting. I do.
Well, can I add on to what Pam just said? We had a lot of community involvement in the CSD, and things were going along swimmingly until the end of 2019. And then the bomb dropped, and that's when we learned that all the stuff that we thought was going to be in the CSD, there was apparently some kind of powwow at regional planning, and a lot of the stuff we wanted to be in the CSD, we learned weren't going to be in the CSD. I mean, that caused such shockwaves in this community that we even ran down and had a meeting with Donna and Adele and I'm sorry, I'm blanking. I'm sorry, Donna. Please help me remember the lady, the Parks lady. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude.
Sorry.
Please forgive me. And
no, I'm with you. I can't
Michelle?
remember either. I apologize. Oh, Susie.
Yes.
Susie, but not with us anymore.
Not Susie Tay. Susie from Niemer. Yes.
She's not with our staff anymore.
Because the floor, the ground fell out beneath us two Novembers ago, and then while we were trying to, saddle the horses and round up the wagons on what to do about that, then COVID hit. So I don't think, thank God for Mr. Kessler, because he's the only person I know of, he and Mr. Fox from Acton, they're the only people I'm aware of who have an inkling that all the trail stuff that we thought we were going to get until November 2018 2019, isn't going to be there. And so, Kelly told me that she's talking to people and they're like, oh, well, or maybe it was Pam, I don't remember, said, oh, well, don't worry, Acton Town Council's got this. And I'm like, we don't got this. In fact, that's why I didn't talk for the first hour of this meeting, because I was too upset, and I should shut up right now, because the perception in this community that we gave them through November of 2019 is not the reality that we're facing today. And I don't know what to do about it. So I just want to put some context in what we're talking about, because it might have appeared to you guys that things are going along swimmingly because you're working with the CSD committee, but we're so disconnected from our community, and we're doing everything we can to connect up, but it's hard. So I'll just shut up now.
No, Jackie, that is valid. And our office has really put the pressure on, getting the CSD plant, and this was all pre-COVID. And Richard, and back when Susie was with us, and now Mark and his team. Whole past year, I mean, we're coming up on a year of being in an unprecedented time of how to get things moving and to operate remotely and virtually and yes, you have a community that is challenged and needs to be able to be present for public comment. So, we have a lot of issues that we did not expect, to come forward. And I'm sure Richard understands this with me. He's done so much work. He's met with so many of our town councils over the previous year, before this year, to just really sit down with everybody one-on-one and process what your wishes are and your desires are. And he's done such a good job. And now we're in a whole different boat. So,
Well, and that's the same thing. What was unfortunate?
Really, we have to be realistic about this. And I know you're all emotional and you're passionate about this, and I understand it, I respect it, and I'm with you in there. And I'm respecting Richard for all of his work, and Mark for coming in midstream and trying to resolve this. But, I think we have to really look at the whole picture. How do we move forward at this point? Do we hold until we can get the community together? Possibly. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry, Richard. I have to throw that out there. We have to figure out a way to get around this, and what we're trying to do is working. It's not fair. I understand
to our community, and I totally respect all the work you guys have done, because I know how much work we've done. And
yes.
My community doesn't know what's going on, and people that I called and said, "Can you get on this call tonight?" They all said the same thing to me. I'm not going to get on one of those Zoom calls where everybody falls off and we have to try to re-get on and all. Nobody had a good experience with it. So you notice who's on the call tonight. I know. Jumps through the hoops to drive their car over here to stand outside in the cold so that I can talk to you.
I know, Pam. Sorry, I wish I could put my arms around you right now.
Okay, but she's not outside, so she's not freezing. Don't think that. I'm not.
I'm in now.
It breaks my heart. It's breaking my heart.
If I can add, sorry, can I add one comment on the Planning Commission? You're right, Mark. Mark pointed out, and he's correct, that they always give you a chance to speak, but it's like 3 minutes. So let me share, as the correspondence secretary for the ATC, our difficulty. We have about 85 minutes of things to present. So we could just spend 12 to 24 hours, literally, to write one of these letters. And that's how much time it takes me to write these letters. Mm-hmm. Or we can line up 10 speakers and have them talk really fast, so fast that it's not even heard in the first place, just to get it in the record. And it's just, I don't have 20 more hours to write another letter between now and February. Well, you have to get it in a week ahead of time to give them a chance to read the darn thing. So I appreciate that the Planning Commission has, lets you speak, but the purpose is not just to check a box that somebody's spoken. It's to have it mean something, and make a difference. And, you know, I'll just go down a little memory lane here. I almost fell out of my chair in August when I saw the commissioners ask some really amazing questions of the planning staff on the issue ordinance. Things like, well, if you're going to really put all of these new parcels for by right shelter development way out in the Antelope Valley, they're not going to be anywhere near the services they need. How is that going to happen? Because I'm sitting here knowing, I know it takes an hour and a half to get on a bus from Lake LA into the city of Lancaster. So it's doubtful that those guys are going to do that. So the planning commissioners asked these specific, brilliant questions that didn't really get answered because there is no good answer. And then they just approved the thing anyway. So like what Pam said, you know, the decision really is largely almost always made before the planning commission hears testimony. That's not true necessarily for the Board of Supervisors, because I've seen things flip back and forth, thank God. But, you know, just because the Planning Commission allows people to speak, it's just a box that's checked, really. I've never seen testimony given that made a change in how people voted. I have seen testimony given that made a change in recommendations, so that's something. But that's not going to happen in this case. So, for example, if I testify to the Planning Commission, please take this one sentence from our AV plan that says commercial businesses shall be connected by trails and pedestrian pathways. Please just shove it somewhere in the CSD. I don't care where, just stick it in there. That's not going to happen, even if I ask for it. So, anyway, I've said my piece.
Thank you. Lynn, I'd like to thank everybody for their comments on that. So what are people feeling that they truly can't do anything more on this until we get back to face? Is that what the thought is?
We haven't really talked about it because we didn't.
Well, I threw that out because I'm just hearing so much concern and yeah, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to throw an iron into the wheel. I mean, I'm at the point where I'm hearing, angst. Thank you. Yes, angst.
And to be fair, we haven't heard from Parks and Rec, so I think
Right.
This is just Jackie, not city committee chairperson or member person. Kelly's the chair or whatever. This is just Jackie, dum Acton resident. I would rather not go forward until we have something substantive from Parks and Recs. That's my personal Jackie opinion.
Okay. Procedurally, I don't know that we can keep a zoning, or excuse me, a regional planning matter on hold based on some actions that Parks needs or may take. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but it would be on hold based on need to demonstrate that we're implementing or going to have the CSD reflect the AV plan. I mean, it's not really Parks and Recs, it's the AV plan that's at issue here, I think.
Well, and my whole thing when we started this is my whole idea is we were going to have multiple community meetings talk about different aspects of the CSD, like split it up into this portion one night, split it up and then to hear what all the people had to say about it and possibly get more community members involved.
Yeah, but
you that were involved in the committee.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Kelly.
Yeah, that was our idea,
Of course, but this hasn't been the norm. Right. We've been under scrutiny to make this happen for everyone because everybody wanted it to happen. But then now we're in a situation where we can't make it happen. Right. So you guys, truly, we are between a rock and a hard spot. We can't finalize things as everybody was demanding. that has never happened for 12 years. And now we can't make it happen because we can't have in-person comment. You know, I mean, we are in a hard spot as well, and we want to do the right thing. So, you know, how do we do the right thing? That's the question.
I was just sitting here earlier just trying to think outside the box. And for me, when situations like this pop up, I want to be there available at all times. And I was even thinking, like, do people want to have a meeting a night with me? And I won't make Rich come to all of them, but I would sit with a group of 5, a group of 10, and go over everything that's being done. I mean, we have, you know, 5 weeks until the hearing. I was thinking that I would do that kind of stuff. I want to meet with the CSD committee. I wanted to meet with you guys right away. I was, you know, if we can meet Monday, I'll spend the whole day with you, and let's go through this CSD and see where there's still the things that are a major hang up. And if there's a way to figure out this part and this part's okay and it can move forward, we might have to table a few things and come back to another time. But that's my job. I'm a planner, so I'll talk to you guys for the next 30 days.
I guess my question is that when you talk about us we come back to things another day, what if we go through all the hearing process and we're still not in coherence on certain items? Can the CSD be reopened? I mean, because I've been told that since I've been on the town council, oh my gosh, the CSD is like horrible to get open. There's no way you'll ever get it open.
That's what Adele used to say all the time. Never open that thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you got it open? You know,
how'd you do that?
There's no way. Yeah, so I'm like, are you talking about coming back around a year from now? Are you talking about coming back around a week from now?
Well, that would. This is interesting that you're bringing this up. This would be something I would need to talk with my deputy and my director.
I agree.
That's some kind of a thing that, you know, it's me kind of thinking outside of the box, because I'm always thinking, like, what can I get done now that's good for everybody? Maybe I can't do everything, but what can I get done now? And then if there's things that are still outstanding, okay, what do I need to do after that to maybe help those things happen? Yeah. That's what I need to talk with my director about. That kind of. You know.
Maybe something could be written when you start doing it that you would open it every, you know, so often. You know, I mean, like every 3 years you have an opportunity to.
That could be. Maybe. That's something I have to look into. But what I was thinking, like, certainly after this meeting is done tonight, I want to meet together with the CSD committee immediately. If you guys are ready to meet on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll block out 3 hours, however much we need, to start working through, because I want us to work through every single line and say, this line we're good with, this line we're bad with, this line we're okay with, you know.
Yeah.
I can't even talk about this now, and this one is good. You know, so that I know, like, okay, I've got something.
Can we say Tuesday or Wednesday?
Kelly, we got to go forward with this. I love the idea of meeting with Mark one-on-one.
Right. So let's say Tuesday or Wednesday. Give us at least Monday for us to go through it, and then.
I'm looking at my calendar right now, and next Wednesday, next Tuesday is the 26th. I'm available from 2:30 onward.
Jackie, the CPUC meeting, the SCE is on Tuesday.
I don't know what it is. That's why I want to make sure.
I show it on Tuesday.
Okay, great.
If that's what you're talking about, I don't know.
The one where they're calling them on the carpet, hopefully. Which I suspect Supervisor Barker had something to do with that, so that's
Wednesday.
good.
Let's not get off on that right now. Let's not get off on that right now.
No, I'm grateful that she did something. That was awesome.
No, that's good. I think Wednesday is the better day.
Okay.
Okay, where?
We'll meet. So that's good. I'm glad we got that I want to continue the discussion. The other thing too is I want to make sure that, you know, if there were any other comments that people had put in the chat this evening, that we get to those, or if there were other things Rich wanted to get through before we close the meeting.
I saw a few comments that came through.
There was, well, no, I wanted to make sure that, so I realized we kind of got, we dived into comments that the CSD committee had made and members of town council, but if there's anybody in, who's a participant or in the chat who has other comments, you know, or just wanted to express themselves, raise your hand, or, you know, now's your time, or if you'd like
Tracy just pointed out that Wednesday, the 27th at 2 p.m., we have a mining operation that wants to open up Red Rover Mine Road, and they're hosting their own, it's not a county or a community thing, but they've invited the community to come and talk to them about the project. That's on the 27th at 2 p.m. I knew there was something on Wednesday, I just couldn't remember what it was.
So do you want to push back the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock?
Tracy, can you talk? Do you know how long that meeting will be? Did it say? I don't have the thing in front of me. I don't know if Tracy.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
No, it doesn't say. I would imagine it wouldn't be longer than 2 hours.
Is 4 o'clock work for people then?
4 o'clock's fine with me.
Me too.
Donna's good? Donna's good at 4.
Sorry, that was the meeting that I had at 2 o'clock, and I had it for 2 to 3. I'm good to move it to 4. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So Rich will put out the invite for that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, if
I'll let Rich continue with any other matters.
I think we so we had the discussion was just kind of opened up, and I don't know if there's any questions that we. Wait, let me see.
So
I don't know if there's any
for the
questions.
chat, we got everything.
I think we did.
I've captured it, and I'm gonna email all of the chat elements to you
Okay.
guys so that it'll
Okay.
be captured. So you don't have to worry about missing something right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is it's not our, you know, it's up to the participants if there's anything they want to share with us. If there isn't anything, and people were done expressing their comments or questions, then we can call it a night. But because I don't have anything else that I needed to go over.
I would just like to close that. I know these are difficult times, but I really do. It may sound strange, but I enjoy it when we get together in these meetings. I enjoy the face-to-face meetings better, but I enjoy any opportunity that we have to share ideas and try to reach some kind of conclusion on some solutions for your community. And, you know, obviously the CSD is one thing. Your community is very diverse and dynamic, so there's many other things that are at play, but whatever little thing that we can do, I'm happy to be involved in that. I know Rich is, and Tahira, and Christina, and obviously Donna and Chuck. So these meetings, as still as they are, I've enjoyed them. They're good, and I hope that we have continued conversation next week as well too. And I'm looking forward to eventually getting a CSD amended for that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I hope you guys stay warm this weekend because I think it's supposed to be getting a little cool.
It is supposed to be a little
Alright.
chilly.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, right.
Excited.
Thank you, Richard.
And
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.